Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor of California, has publicly proposed bold action on the issue of gun violence in America, a 28th constitutional amendment. Intrigued? Then click that like and subscribe, and enjoy the video. So we've made multiple videos, and I imagine we'll continue to make multiple videos until the stars burn out, about the issue of American gun violence, which is ludicrously disproportionate given our wealth, our resources, and our privilege. The U.S. is the wealthiest, most powerful nation in the history of civilization, and yet when you compare us to any other relatively advanced economy on the planet, any of the other G7 nations like Germany and France and the United Kingdom and so on and so forth, we experience this as a unique problem. Other countries don't grapple with this the way that we do. And when the time comes for legislators to try to do their job and address the issue, which is what they're constitutionally compelled to do, they either can't get it done or they don't want to get it done. So in terms of who doesn't want to get it done, Republicans, who are bought and paid for by the National Rifle Association. Now, what the GOP will do is they'll get on Twitter and they'll offer their thoughts and prayers, which is great. Except they get paid to legislate. They get paid to pass and enforce laws. So what they should be doing is trying to pass and enforce laws that would reduce gun violence in the United States. That's what they're supposed to do. If you want to offer thoughts and prayers along the way, that's great. But that's not what we pay you to do, so do your damn jobs. And very often they obstruct attempts by Democrats to legislate in that way. An exception, of course, being last year's Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, that was signed into law by President Biden. Great win, and it was like the biggest piece of gun control legislation in the past 30 years. So big win. But there's more to be done. Enter the Democratic governor of California, Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom is a high-profile governor. He leads the biggest, most populous, most wealthy state in the United States, and he's a Democrat. And as a matter of fact, given his status and given his relative youth, his charisma, his energy, his combativeness, he was seen as an alternative to President Biden had Biden chose not to run in 2024. And he's also seen as one of the front runners in 2028. Now, we have many competent Democratic governors. Democratic governors are just by definition more competent than their Republican counterparts because Democrats actually want to govern. So you have like J.D. Pritzker and Gretchen Whitmer who get things done legislatively. They're very competent lawmakers and law enforcers. Newsom is unique, however, because he is a quote-unquote culture warrior for the left in the way that Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott are for the right. So those are two governors who, traffic exclusively in culture war issues. Newsom also affects policy, but he is willing to go toe-to-toe rhetorically with these bad faith authoritarian Republican governors. So as a matter of fact, he spent millions of dollars running very compelling ads in Florida and in Texas, mocking, insulting, and debunking the claims of those Republican governors, pointing out the various policy failures and how the states have suffered in various ways under Republican leadership. So I love that energy. And consequently, he has put out this video about a hypothetical 28th constitutional amendment to address the issue of gun violence. So I want to watch the video, and then we will unpack the rest of it. Okay? So let's hear what the governor has to say.
Every time, it's the same. They tell us we can't stop these massacres. They tell us we have to stand by and watch tragedy after tragedy unfold in our communities. They say we can't stop domestic terrorism without violating the Second Amendment. And the thoughts and prayers are the best we can do.
Now, I will say, just to stop right there, as a reminder, the Second Amendment of the United States is not, and has never been, and never will be, an unlimited right. Even the most conservative iterations of the United States Supreme Court, including Justice Scalia, Justice Alito, even in the 2008 Heller decision, they said very clearly the Second Amendment is not unlimited. It is not absolute. The government, under certain circumstances, can and should intervene in a citizen's right to own firearms. So that is simply a fact, and anyone who even suggests otherwise is either ignorant or a liar. Let's continue.
I'm here to say that's a lie. In this country, we do have the power to change things, to reclaim our freedom from fear. Our ability to make a more perfect union is literally written into the Constitution. So today, I'm proposing the 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution to do just that. The 28th Amendment permanently enshrines 4 additions to the laws of our land. It raises the minimum age to purchase a firearm from 18 to 21, because if you can't buy a beer, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. it mandates universal background checks to prevent truly dangerous people from purchasing a gun that can be used in a crime. It institutes reasonable waiting periods for all gun purchases, and it bans civilians from buying assault rifles, those weapons of war our founding fathers never foresaw. This will guarantee states as well the ability to enact common sense gun safety laws while leaving the Second Amendment intact and respecting America's gun-owning tradition. The 28th locks in the common sense constitutional protections that Democrats, Republicans, independents, and gun owners overwhelmingly support.
I'll also say, I just now noticed this, look at, not only does he bring the receipts, right, but he cites Fox News. That is very rhetorically compelling, given that Fox News is the most prominent right-wing piece of media and propaganda network in mainstream media. So he's basically doing, jujitsu in a way. He's using their own momentum against them to say, even your own media is forced to concede that these solutions are overwhelmingly popular. Deal with it.
And it ensures NRA-owned politicians can never strip those protections away. This fight won't be easy, and it certainly won't be fast. Convening a constitutional convention requires 2/3 of the states to call for this. California will be the first. But that's just the beginning. Join us by going to campaignfordemocracy.com and signing the petition. To protect our communities and protect our freedom, support the 28th.
So that was a very compelling advertisement, I think. Now, a couple of things. I'll also point out that he threw in images of Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, the very two prominent Republican governors that I mentioned, that he likes to troll, and rightly so. So a bit of fun fact here, the most recent constitutional amendment was the 27th Amendment, which was passed or ratified fully in 1992. And basically it just says that the legislature, Congress, can't raise its own salary without having an election first, basically to try to root out corruption. So if you want to raise your salary, you have to have an election and risk losing that office, so you can't just basically reward yourself corruptly. The other interesting fact, this amendment was first proposed in 1792, so it languished for about 200 years before it was ratified. Something else to point out, as Governor Newsom concedes, this is going to be a very tall order. It's just simply a fact. I mean, so you look at, again, 30 years. It's been 30 years since the most recent constitutional amendment, so they're very uncommon, and they're fewer than 30 total when you consider the 250-year history of the United States. It's extremely rare. So as he suggests, to pass the 28th Amendment, Newsom and California lawmakers would need to initiate a nationwide convention to propose the measures to the U.S. Constitution. Then 2/3 of all U.S. state houses would need to agree to the initial meeting, and another 3/4 would need to support the amendment for it to become law. Major, colossal hurdles, okay, that in this political climate is virtually impossible because Republicans control 30 out of 50 state legislatures. That's what we're up against, and they have absolutely no interest in taking this amendment at face value or even deferring to, again, the polls that Newsom cited from Fox News, right? Their own media source. So it's almost certain that this will fail. But even as a symbolic gesture, it indicates that, Newsom is prepared to propose bold solutions, even if they're unlikely to pass. Now, that's not where you should stop, right? You shouldn't just virtue signal. Virtue signaling has its purpose. It has its utility. But then you should do whatever you can with the powers that you have to make even incremental change if need be. Which, again, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act signed into law by President Biden was one such action. So, listen, at the end of the day, this isn't going to work. It's not going to pass because the Republican Party collectively, in terms of its leadership, is, as we've said, a bad faith, disloyal opposition party that has absolutely no interest in responsibly governing. But I like this energy from Gavin Newsom, and we'll see how high profile it gets. Maybe President Biden could weigh in and gain traction. I'm sure it would receive support from all 20 of the Democratic state legislatures, but not all of those are led by Democratic governors, right? So you have situations where in 20 states, some of them have Democratic-controlled legislatures, but are led by Republican governors who would almost certainly veto the measure. So again, it's very complicated, stands almost no chance, but boy, wouldn't it be nice.